Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Just in Time Cafe webinar. I'm Elizabeth Swan, co-founder of the Just in Time Cafe, and I will be your moderator today. And if you've never been to the cafe before, you are in for a treat. I'm very excited about today's webinar, Lean Communication Systems that Build Engagement and Trust, presented by my good bud and colleague, Jennifer Tankenow. Let me tell you a little bit about Jennifer. She is co-founder and vice president of Joint Pivot. Jen Tankenow has built on her years at Toyota to bring her lean sensibility to the business world. She's a teacher, a great teacher, a leader, a facilitator, helping clients apply the Toyota production system, strategic planning, change management, and continuous improvement. She partners with companies to solve problems, create strategic plans so they can hit their goals. She's a veteran of personalized, repeatable solutions that stick, so companies can grow and take ownership of their journey. Welcome, Jen.
Hello, I'm so excited to be back.
It's awesome to have you back. I'm going to tell everybody about a few upcoming or current offerings at the Just in Time Cafe, and then I will hand the baton to Jen. Super excited that next month's webinar is with Kim Crowder, who, boy, she is a powerhouse. Kim is both Lean Six Sigma leadership trained and also just a powerhouse of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she is going to talk to us about how to create a great workplace, right? One that honors people from all backgrounds. And she's got five ways to help you build the culture to be what it can be. So please join us for that. Let me put the link in here in case you guys can make that one. And then the latest podcast episode that is out is with the amazing Karen Martin. And we had a wonderful discussion about learning, what makes great learning. And she's created an academy. And she's also, I didn't even realize this, she's trained in adult learning. So Karen has written books on the Kaizen Event Planner, Clarity First. Let's see, there's another one on process mapping. Yeah, Karen has written many books, and she's an amazing educator. So that's a great podcast just about sort of what goes in. So let me see if I can grab that link to the podcast. And there you go. And then just a brief moment to acknowledge, I've been watching everybody come in here, and we were off the bat, Jen, we got international. We got Hugh from Vancouver, and then we got James in Melbourne. We've got Gary in Cleveland, Tanya from Toronto, AJ Boston. Hey, East Coaster, because seems like the lean community is concentrated in the West, and I just think that's wrong. So then we've got Tim in Calgary. Awesome. Got a lot of Canadians coming in here. This is awesome. And let's see, Carlos, welcome. Also a veteran of the cafe, a visitor. Katie in Santa Barbara. Summer, UCSD Health, go Summer. Great to have you. UCSD Health, a wonderful organization. Pandora and Raleigh, Olga, welcome Olga, another awesome member of the Just in Time community. We got Nashville, Seattle, Chicago, Oregon, Bay Area, Connecticut. Oh my God, you got a lot of people here, Jen. You better be ready.
I know.
Okay, so we have an awesome group. Yeah. Yes. So I'm handing the baton back to you. Take it away.
Wonderful. And I did see in Ann Arbor, there's a couple Ann Arborites out there.
Michigan, representing.
Yep. I'm sure if you're home with kids today, 2 days of two snow days in a row. Hopefully this is it from now on. So welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be back in the cafe. It's always a pleasure to work and talk with Elizabeth constantly about everything. And so I'm really excited to bring this content today. She did a fantastic introduction of myself, so I don't even have to let you know, but there's 2 slides in here about what Joint Pivot does. We like to solve problems, partner with leaders, and as Elizabeth mentioned, build solutions that will stick. Because once we leave, we want to help everyone fish for themselves, right? And attain their goals. We teach, we speak, we customize anything. It's lots of fun. It's been a lot of fun. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is how communication works, why leaders matter, and why it is so important to a lean culture and continuous improvement. And so if we don't think about all of these elements that I'm going to hopefully bring up a lot of things that you may have not thought about in this way, and you're going to think to yourself, wow, that really does impact a lean culture and a continuous improvement thinking. And I was fortunate enough to start my career at Toyota. I went there as a co-op and then went there as a new grad out of college, and I didn't realize what I was immersed in until I left. Need to turn my space heater off. I was there for almost 10 years. And so to me, lean Toyota production system is defined as continuous improvement and respect for every individual. And to me, that is the foundation for everything. If we don't have those, it could be a very scary environment which you're engaged in. And so this training will help connect the dots on how and why communication supports both of those. So continuous improvement, respect for every individual. Note, there's other side effects of this: trust, engagement, getting the most out of your people, and helping them understand the value they bring at any level in the organization. It's so exciting. We want to get the most out of them every day, but we also want to give back, right? Because we want them to be excited to come to work every day, drive improvements, and really impact the bottom line. So we're going to cover some very fundamental, but also critical topics, including you, right, the leader, have impact and ownership and a stake in all of this activity. And the cool thing about this content is that if you do not have ownership over an entire organization, right, say you're just a team and maybe the culture isn't the best, these are all actions that you can do on your own. You and your team can demonstrate this, and trust me, it carries over from you to the people you work with. And all of a sudden, you've got this bright, shining light that you've created within your team or your function or your department. It's huge, it's big, and it's very exciting. And I am going to have a couple questions. I would love engagement in the chat, so feel free to add items in there. Elizabeth and I are going to be taking a look at it throughout the next hour, so we definitely want to drive that engagement. Today, we're going to talk about the communication system, mixed messages, wastes, right? Did you ever think that waste would be attributed or linked to communication? We'll talk about that for a bit, and so much more. I'm so excited about this. So first, I want to start with, obviously, this slide. I want to set the tone with trust. So every year, Edelman, which I wasn't aware of until a couple of years ago, is the world's largest PR firm. And they conduct this study among 25 or more countries that focuses on the principles of trust in businesses, governments, media, and NGO, which is non-government organizations, a lot of nonprofits, World Peace, Greenpeace, the WHO, Red Cross, etc. And I'm going to read this, so I apologize for reading my notes. But they say that trust defines an organization's license to operate, lead, and succeed. And trust is the foundation that allows organizations to take responsible risk, and if it makes a mistake, to rebound from them. So talk about representing a lean culture, right? Trying something, recognizing that it doesn't work, coming back, right? And then moving forward. And when your leaders create that environment, you have trust and you actually learn, gosh, it's okay if I make a mistake. We're going to learn from it and grow, right? Versus, oh, I'm terrified to make a mistake because if I do, I'm going to get criticized. I'm never going to be brought to the table again. We don't want that, right? So it is so important to recognize how employers, right, impact trust when it comes to organizations and employees. And in today's world, unfortunately, we're clouded with mistrust, misinformation. There's a glimmer of hope in businesses. And in 2022, just like 2021, the survey shows that businesses are not only the most trusted institution among the 4 studied, but also one of the only trusted institutions on a global level. That's huge, right? So when you looked at the left-hand side, you can see how we view our employer and where it stacks up against these other organizations, other businesses, NGOs, government, media. So to me, it could be scary. It could also be very empowering because leaders and employees have a lot of ownership when it comes to trust on every day. So question for everyone, and feel free to chime in, is why do employees trust their businesses more than, say, the government, right, or media? And Elizabeth, feel free to chime in.
I didn't expect the results of this poll. Like that's just, I'm
Right.
taking it in kind of where,
Right.
I mean, I certainly see that there's kind of, unfortunate reasons media probably has tanked in terms of trust.
Well, and in
And
2020, the government was the highest.
in 2020, government was highest, and now that has gone down.
Right.
Interesting.
And you think about businesses, they have your paycheck. They're choosing your benefits. Who do you see the most during the day, even in a remote world?
Yeah. Aaron is saying maybe people trust business over media and government because goals or objectives and are clearer, not as many quote unquote hidden agendas. And Claire said, maybe as an employee, you can contribute to the outcome and build trust. Interesting. You're part of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love these comments because they add more to my understanding of why trust is so big and why people look to their businesses. Right there, it's their paycheck. It's their, helps pay their rent or their mortgage. And I love the part about we want employees to have ownership in the bottom line, to give ideas, to take action in how the business operates. So
Yeah.
we want there to be trust. So this is a good thing. The challenge is how do we continue to maintain it and not squash it and ruin it? Because as I said earlier, trust is huge, right? For definitely a lean culture.
You've also got Tia saying that they want to retain you as an employee, right? So they're working hard for you. And James is saying media can be different from one to another, and a business can be more consistent, right? Or has the opportunity to be more consistent. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
My employer, I see. Yeah. Good.
Yep. And absolutely the media, right? In today's world, back in the day, it was CBS, NBC, ABC, right? Fox, maybe. And now news is everywhere. And it's hard to know what to believe. And it's very time consuming. So yes, I think it's a pretty cool, information about trust and where obviously different countries fall compared to the US. But no matter what, there's a lot of ownership on you as leaders. And being a leader doesn't mean you have to be a people leader, right? You can not have any direct employees and still be a leader and demonstrate leadership qualities. So we can all take this to heart and continue to work on trust. So my next question for everyone is, in a world of communication, or just when you think of communication and you think of companies that you've either worked for or maybe you admire, what does good look like? What does good communication look like? No wrong answers.
So you're asking for folks just the world of communication.
Yep. In what does good look like? Or do you have a company that you worked for that you think they crushed communication? So yes, transparency, that's actually the top of my list. Clear, honest. I'm sorry, I'm pulling these up too, Elizabeth. Willing to share the good and the bad, right? To be transparent. And then if there's trust there, and if it is bad news, you trust that they're going to take good action on it. Right? So you're going to remain loyal. You're going to show up. You're going to continue to contribute and give ideas.
Yeah. I like concise.
Yes.
I often feel like there's so much coming at you. It's like, what am I taking away here? What are you trying to tell me? So, and frequent, right? You don't get just one message and then like, well, we sent that out last year. It's like, well, hello.
Yeah. I see they know the goal and they've shared it. And and everyone can understand it, but also listening, right? So not just giving information, but also, taking it back in. Do
Ooh,
what they say. That's going to come up later today.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's endless, right? Empathetic delivery, right? So when they are sharing bad news, they actually are on the same level with the employees they're giving it to. Understanding their customer, so possibly scaling the message depending on
Mm.
who they're talking to. If they're talking to, finance versus, say, a maintenance department, the message might be delivering the same information, but it might come out differently because they understand and care about their audience, right? Demonstrating respect, right? So playing into that lean culture. And a big one here is avoiding mixed messages, being clear, transparent, to the point, Elizabeth, like you said, so we're not allowing a lot of room for assumptions, or people to fill in the gaps, because we know how much people love to fill in the gaps. So thank you for all of that. Feel free to add more as we continue on. So in front of you is the communication key. And fun fact, I actually have a PDF that Elizabeth is going to share that has this in it. So don't worry about reading all the words right now. You actually can take it back with you. And what I love about the communication key, it's 2 slides total, is that it makes what great looks like when it comes to communication very objective. We've put it into words. There's obviously many more words that could be on here, but I love it, right? It helps you understand what good is, what average is, what great is, and possibly what you could do to move up that, to improve your communication at your business. And so I'm going to go over just a couple key points that stick out to me, ones that I've experienced at other organizations that I've been with, and ones that obviously I work on with companies I work with today. So level 5 means that the business has fully embraced communication as a foundation in how it operates. It's not just haphazard, oh, let's put a memo together. There's actually a process around how they communicate with employees. They know who the employees are, so it's scaled appropriately, pulling out a lot of what you just mentioned about what great looks like for communications. Employees and leaders are accountable for the communication environment that they create and sustain. And something that I really like about what great is at a level 5 is that people know their roles in the organization. Number one, because it's been documented and it's clearly defined, almost your span of control, but it's also been communicated. So we're not having those assumptions. So people now have the ownership and autonomy to run with activities. They can make decisions. They know what they're impacting, which is huge, right? When you come to supporting a lean culture, continuous improvement, respect for every individual. It's definitely demonstrated here. Level 4 is still an admired company. They're using continuous improvement to help with projects. They're measuring how well communication is in their surveys or pulse surveys that happen throughout the year. Employees are motivated to think and act like business owners, again, because they understand the goal. They know what they're accountable for, and they understand kind of those lanes in which they can operate. And they're given the freedom to actually talk with people outside their function and problem solve together and move forward, which is huge. It's very exciting for employees. When we move down to level 3, it's still good, right? Maybe we're becoming a little bit less mature in regards to our communication, and it definitely impacts the autonomy of employees, but communication is still a focus. It's still thought about. It's still measured. However, it might not be as present or built into how everyone operates. There might not be a ton of expectations about how people communicate function to function or when they're rolling things out. Level 2 describes businesses that manage top down. And so raise your hand if you've ever worked at a company where you're just kind of waiting for information. You're waiting to be told what to do or what to hear. It's not very comfortable, right, Elizabeth? Like it's unnerving.
Yes,
And
and you're getting some hands raised that
am I?
people have
Okay,
experienced
okay,
that.
yes, I can't see those, so thank you. Yeah, in a continuous improvement culture, we want people to understand their control, what they own, what they're delivering on. And if you're waiting to be told, you're unsure what to do. It is not a fun environment. It can be very uncomfortable. And then the last level here is the need to know. It feels like there's secrets, right? You're all just kind of watching people's behavior, seeing what meetings are going on, and you're just really waiting at your desk to be told what to do. You can't make decisions, right? I worked in an organization that was a 1 or 2, and my mom and I thought I was going to get fired every day. It was so uncomfortable and not fun to be at. I've got thousands of stories there. So if you're there, right, maybe you can't impact the entire organization today, but you can make your team feel comfortable. You can make your peers feel comfortable. So don't think that you're stuck. There's definitely things you can do. So we care about these levels because we need to focus on our people, right? Without our people, our peers, the people we work with, there's nothing. And so that's why all of this is so important to talk about. And so we're going to talk about the communication system. And this slide talks about the big C. The big C is communication. And I don't want us to just think about normal communication, right? Meetings, town halls, emails. I want you to expand your mind outside of that and think about communications in ways that you maybe haven't realized recently or ever, right? Communications represent all the ways we send, receive, and process information, right? There's also a foundational layer of how communication is used by businesses, and this plays into the system that we're going to get into. You cannot not communicate, which I know is a double negative. You cannot not communicate, because if you're not communicating and something happened, you're communicating something. And the way I like to think about this is that anything can be interpreted, right? An eye roll, a shrug, showing up late, not doing something, right? That's all communicating something. Showing up to a meeting on time but in a terrible mood and being grumpy is communicating something. Keep in mind, it could have been that your kids had a snow day called, at the last minute, and you had to figure out what to do with them, right? But be aware that your actions, what you're doing with your hands and your overall attention is communicating something. So please be aware of that, because we want to make sure that we're demonstrating control, at least understand how it's impacting those around us. I'm sure you've all had a boss or a leader storm into a meeting, slam a door, or do something, and you're like, uh-oh, what did we do wrong? Now what? Yeah, it's not fun. So yes, communication's a two-way street, right? Cubicles, private offices. I used to comment as I moved through my career at Toyota back in the day. I'm not quite sure what they do today, but it was a completely open office. Only the president sat in an office, and that was really just for meetings and visitors and whatnot. Even the vice presidents were at a cube. It said something, right? That's communicating something about the culture and the environment. So this slide introduces the communication system. Again, this is borrowed from the leadership solution from Jim Schaefer, and I love it because it's all things lean. He probably didn't even realize it when he was writing it, but it speaks to my DNA. So people are bombarded with messages constantly, right? It's confusing. There's mixed messages. People come from different backgrounds, different work cultures, different environments, different countries, right? And so if we don't impact how they're hearing and seeing and understanding things, we have confusion. And so the communication system here helps with decisions, actions, and results, which impacts the customer, right? In a good way. Well, we want it to impact the customer in a good way. And that customer can also be internal customers. It's not always that end person. And so we're going to talk about how 3 different parts make up the system. We want to manage it well, because when done well, we have an ecosystem of trust, engagement. People are excited. Again, we have transparency, and people understand the value that they bring every day. So the first part of the leadership of the communication system is leaders. And I love talking about this one because what comes to mind are a couple leaders in my life that help shape my behaviors. And the one I love to bring out is someone I would have followed everywhere, literally. And then he retired. And I'm like, I wish I could follow you into retirement, but I just can't afford that quite yet. So what leaders spend their time on, the decisions they make, how they make decisions, how they get engaged, is communicating something, what motivates them, what they might be instructed to work on from their leaders, right? This can cause mixed messages, right? Good or bad. We want to make sure we understand that. And what I loved and learned from this guy, Steve, that I mentioned, is that he was a fantastic teacher. So when I worked for him, I was joining an organization and in a project management role. I didn't know anything about the business or industry, but I knew project management, I knew process, and I was a packaging grad, so I kind of knew what they were doing, but not really. He constantly asked me questions when I joined. Hey, Jen, is the budget approved for this project? Are the molds ready? What's going on at the border? And I'm like, I don't know these answers. I'm like, I don't know, Steve. I'll go get them and bring them back to you, right? He was so consistent in asking the same questions constantly that all of a sudden I started having the answers right away because I knew that they were important, because he was so good about planting these throughout that all of a sudden it became part of my behavior. And guess what I did? In turn, I started asking these same questions to my team, right? Did they all have them in the beginning? No, but they started to have them, right, in the future. And then they realized and built it into their own repertoire in their own project meetings. And I'm like, there was no yelling, there was no arguing, there was no fighting, right? He was just simply asking these questions. And so consistency, right? If he asked one time and I didn't know the answer and I found it and he never asked me again, I would have never realized it was so important, right? So the fact that he kept planting the same questions over and over again, repeatedly, almost like a standard, I was learning. It gives me goosebumps because it was so cool. Obviously, I didn't realize it in the moment. When he retired, we started to realize, what he had done for all of us. So him doing that, I'm going to tell the story for the rest of my life, right? So how well you listen is also key, right? It was brought up earlier in regards to what does great look like? Listening, right? Those behaviors rub off on your team members and your peers, and they start to emulate that. So the more you do that and build it into your organization, it's huge respect for every individual, and it definitely supports a continuous improvement culture. Other elements is how you reward and recognize. And so I know in a lot of the ads that we were putting out for this webinar, we were talking a lot about mixed messages. So who here has had a leader who maybe didn't recognize people in the most consistent manner? It was always maybe one person, or it was always sales. Sales is always getting recognized. Well, what about everyone else that is engaged to deliver the project? Right? Yes, Tia, it's easy to recognize, but it's challenging to recognize consistently in an equal manner, right? And so think about that in your own behaviors, in your own family. Are you constantly praising one person and not the other, when in reality they're probably doing just as great? It's key to be aware of that, because when you don't do it equally, you have mixed messages, you have confusion, trust, engagement, excitement can go down. And then again, people are going to fill in the blanks. Why wasn't so-and-so recognized? They did the exact same thing, right? We don't want that. We want to control those environments. And then how well you use symbolism. I love this comment because to me, this speaks a lot to articulating the vision, using company values and beliefs to help motivate people. For some, you might have awards, right? Or some, we're all familiar with, X amount of days with no safety incident, right? Or an accident. You might have a medal or a pizza party. These are other ways to motivate, but it needs to be part of a process and it needs to be consistent, right? So I'm just chuckling at the chat. So it's big. So these are all very, very important, and they should be in your handouts today. The next part of the communication system is really systems. And this one brings up a lot of mixed messages. And again, when I was putting this together with another company, I'm like, wow, mixed messages galore. And again, I didn't know what I was experiencing at Toyota. Right, there's definitely problems and issues there, but there's also a lot of great things. And I learned a lot of what those great things were when I left, because I didn't experience them anymore. And so these items on the screen can create a lot of mixed messages, uncertainty, obviously lack of trust and engagement. And so what I mean by that is your organization structure communicates. Is it flat? Is it steep? Is it really heavy at the top, right? Are there lots of vice presidents and senior vice presidents and all of that, and then maybe not so many people doing the work, right? It's almost like, can you ask for an org structure before you join an organization? And then if you look at the org structure, it could be misleading because a lot of people could have VP or senior VP or whatever at their title, but they're very tactical. They're doing stuff on the front line, right? So that's communicating something, how the organization operates and what they value. So the approval processes. Raise your hand if you work for a business that has a very slow, sometimes inconsistent approval process, especially for funding, right? Big customers, you know, flashy names might get funding immediately, right? But other ones don't. What does that say? Are the other projects not as important, right? Most of the time they're not. It takes a collection of multiple different types of projects to make a company successful. So it's communicating something. Pay and rewards, kind of speaking and lining up with that org structure. How is pay calculated? And it's interesting, right? Isn't it New York now? New York State says they have to post the pay for all salaries, or at least the ranges, I think today, or there's something out there right now. California, of course, California. And creating transparency so you understand, right? Okay, so yeah, it's becoming a thing. But we've all worked places where sometimes someone gets a promotion and they get 10% immediately. Well, I've been in a company where I got promoted to the same level. Guess who didn't get 10%? Me. And when asked, because someone was helping coach me behind the scenes to have enough, guts to go and ask, Jen, I'm sorry. What you're doing isn't equal to what they were doing. And I won't go down that rabbit hole, but where's the transparency up front? It was very frustrating. What do you think my engagement was like for the next 3 to 4 days? Pretty darn low. And it still sits with me. So I still have a small chip. I obviously have gotten over it, but it's going to sit with me. We've all been there. And so think about that. You as leaders or people that you work with that are having people getting promoted, rotated, what is that standard, or is it not? People will find out, just don't talk about pay. It happens. People will talk about it. I think it's even more and more prevalent today than it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. So pay and rewards is huge. Resource allocation, same thing. Why do some functions always get people and new hires and others don't? Right? One organization that I was at, one team constantly got new hires right after another team was forced to lay off people. And I'm like, now layoffs are going to happen, right? We're aware of it. It's going to happen. But are we communicating the why? Are we communicating the decision that had to be made that was very uncomfortable and being transparent with it? Or does it just happen and so-and-so's not there the next day? And then you email them and you get you get a bounce back, right? So while we have to live in a world where we make these challenging decisions, are we at least communicating what's going on behind the scenes, being a little bit transparent, right? And avoiding mixed messages, right? Demonstrate that respect for your employees by being honest and transparent, even when it's very, very uncomfortable. In the beginning, when you start doing it, people are going to be like, what's going on here? Why are they telling us all of this? But if you have consistency with it, they're going to start to respect it, right? They're going to start to get on board and understand, how the business operates. But it also means that a lot of these systems need to be transparent altogether. It can't just be one. It's an entire ecosystem that has to work together. And then the last one I pick on a lot, which I love, is the whole working environment, right? Not having a clean environment speaks a lot about how you value your employees, right? Having an unsafe environment, a break room where refrigerators don't work or microwaves are filthy, right? Zero respect demonstrated by anyone, peer-to-peer, leader, etc. So there's a lot that can be done to demonstrate the values and what you believe in. And then the last part of the communication system is formal channels. And this is how messages are normally delivered. And here's just a small handful. I know some companies sometimes have 30 or more channels, right? SharePoints, Slack, obviously text messages, phone calls. There's so many other ways. We have to be aware of where information is being communicated, because we have to know what's going on, what's being communicated, removing mixed messages, right? Sometimes adding definition and more information into some of these communications. So being aware of formal channels is so much more important than I ever thought, because you have no idea what's going on out there. Get control, manage it, squash rumors when they happen, be honest even when it's uncomfortable. It's a lot. So I love the communication system and that it's so big, and however, it does present obviously challenges, but all good challenges for companies to think about when they are really focusing on that lean culture, and all the values. So jumping ahead, continuing to build on those lean principles within your culture and your communication. Has anyone ever thought about how communication can be demonstrated in the waste, or how waste lives within communication, right? So for any lean practitioners, right, waste is not a great thing. It's going to happen, and we have to be aware of that. But waste causes rework, inventory, right? Over-processing, waiting, overproduction, waiting, and more waiting, right? And so if we think about these communication defects and what waste they create, it's huge, right? So as I read through these and give some examples, feel free to add more, because this is so prevalent. And when I go through these, think about yourselves as a parent, a teacher, a peer, a leader. Where are you possibly contributing to this? I cringe sometimes. I'm like, oh yes, I may have passed on bad information, right? But let's at least be aware of it and try to reduce it. So the first one is wrong information, right? Wrong due dates, wrong budgets, wrong locations, right? Almost like bad quality in regards to what we're giving. Who's our source? Maybe I should recheck that. Understanding the environment that you work in. It's important to be aware. Mixed messages, right? Mixed messages isn't just words coming out of your mouth. It could be words plus your actions, right? So great job, everyone. That was a crushing quarter, right? It's a mixed message. What people are going to not believe what I'm saying. They're probably going to watch my actions and believe that over the words coming out of my mouth. A big one with mixed messages is saying one thing and doing another, right? So for any of you in a manufacturing setting, hey, broken pallet on the floor, pick it up, right? Stop what you're doing, get off your forklift, pick it up, throw it away properly. But if you're a leader out on that floor and you walk over that broken pallet, done. Trust gone. We don't want that. So recognize how your actions need to back up your words. It's huge. And then the last one is slow moving information, right? Especially for large organizations where approvals have to come down or be moved around from different function to different function, it can be very slow. We have to be aware of that. Are we communicating updates along the way? Are we working to make it faster, right? It's all of these, when they occur, it's just a lack of respect for everyone that you're working with, and it makes me sad. It definitely is not supporting a continuous improvement culture, and so it's really important for leaders to be aware of these defects and work very hard to remove them, identify them, call them out, right? Have a quiz one day and a contest of who can identify the most communication defects for the week, right? And then have a fun activity to try and reduce it and improve it. So it's huge. I see some of the comments not recognizing good work, right? It's like lack of information, completely missed. There's your chance to reinforce good behavior, and having it be repeated, gone, right? So it's a lot of ownership in all of this, but it's big. Yes, a communication Kaizen would be a fantastic, fun and engaging way to figure out how to find the root cause and then remove it. And what's more exciting to demonstrate respect for your employees, to say we are working on this. We recognize we might not be great in this area. Transparency, honesty, right? Relevancy. It speaks to all of those. What does good look like? So I could talk on and on about this, but yeah, definitely fun to have a conversation with your teams and peers, for sure. So the example I gave about, preaching for a clean, safe environment, but then you don't demonstrate it, right? So your actions speak so loudly, I can hardly hear what you're saying. Again, people are going to see your actions and movements and listen to that over what you're actually saying and what's coming from your mouth. Scary, right? But think about it. Watch just in a normal day of life, just observe how you are listening to people, right? As another form of communication. So again, eye rolls, showing up late, not completing tasks, not following up with people, not getting out of your seat and actually going to talk to people, right? Especially if you're in the same work environment. That's saying something. Or the people, I hate saying this because I work with a lot of companies where people don't turn their cameras on. Why don't they try? Mine's always on. I'm trying to demonstrate, even if luckily Zoom puts eyebrows on me and lipstick, so it's okay if I don't have makeup on. Right? But I care about people and I enjoy that personal connection. So just recognize that your actions are saying lots of things. Be aware. When I read this, I also think about myself 20 years ago when I started working. And I maybe was a little excited and maybe a little loud. I don't know. For those who know me, are like, no, never. And I cringe sometimes at like, oh man, I wish someone would have pulled me aside and said, hey, Jen, simmer down, cut the antics out, right? What you're working on is so important. Think about how you can demonstrate that in a different way. And we all learn, right? Self-reflection is key, but think about this. This is huge. You could lose a lot of credibility, trust, engagement by not fully embracing this comment, which plays perfectly into this next model, which I love so much. It's the be, say, do model, right? So I constantly, based on that whole leadership example I just gave, I'm constantly reflecting on myself. Whether I'm at home, I'm with friends, I'm working with people, I want to be consistent. Right. And so after, living in the Toyota world for 10 years, consistency is key. Right. And when it comes to communication, we want to be consistent. So raise your hand if you've ever worked for a company, or you may have said, gosh, we talk a good game, but we never back it up with our actions. Elizabeth, do you have?
You got some hands going up.
Oh, do I? Okay, good. Yeah, for sure. I'm sure I've done it too. And the key with this model is that the B are the behaviors, your beliefs. If you work for a business, it could be the values, right, and the behaviors that are defined to support the values, right? That's the B. The do are the actions you take to demonstrate that, right? And hopefully your actions are modeling that constantly, right? And then the say are the words to back it all up. Or you could say it starts with the say, here are my beliefs, right? Here's how I act in accordance with my beliefs, and here's the words I continue to use. And so it's an amazing ecosystem. It is hard to get here. This is not something that, just overnight. It's definitely work. It's definitely a journey. There's an endurance aspect to it. And the example I give when I talk about this is that at home, I would love a clean house constantly. Well, guess who has to demonstrate a clean house to get a clean house? Me, right? I remember once I was walking up the stairs. At the top of my stairs, my kid's bathroom is right there. And I look, they're 7 and 9 now. And there was stuff all over the sink and the counter. Toothpaste, toothbrush, Ziploc bags, because they often spend the night at their grandparents' house. Toys, chapstick, you name it, it was there. And I'm like, man. So they come home and I'm like, can you guys go clean up your bathroom, please? And they're like, yeah. Well, a couple minutes later, after not yelling, but politely, some frustration in there, I turn the corner, I go into our bathroom, my husband's and mine. And guess what the sink looked like? Makeup, hairbrushes, chapstick, cans of Diet Coke. I'm like, oh, yep. Guess who can't ask them to clean up their bathroom anymore? Until I demonstrate a clean bathroom, right? And so over the course of the last couple years of teaching this training, I've gone through many trials and errors of how to figure out what system works for the house. And for me, just to stay sane, the kitchen. I just want to have a clean kitchen. So I work every night to always have a clean kitchen, because nothing makes me more happy than walking down the morning to a clean kitchen. But again, I can't have a clean house if I don't demonstrate it, right? I can't have a team of people who are responsible and getting things done on time and working their hardest if I don't demonstrate that, right? So you see how our values and our beliefs and our demonstration of these come across at work and how they obviously build excitement. So yeah, clean house. Yeah, someday when the kids are gone and my husband, I don't know, he's still around. Nothing's happening to him, but he was not raised in a very clean house. And so mental note, if I could go back and do this all over again, I might ask his parents a couple more questions before I start dating him. Clearly he's wonderful. I wouldn't get rid of him because he doesn't put his clothes away, but whole other story. But anywho, this model is so huge and so important. And if we just start to define what the B means, right? You have to write it down. You can't just think it. But then you layer on the do. What are the behaviors? What are the actions? Because when you start to talk about those, right, and match it up with the B, people start to understand. And then when you demonstrate it, and sometimes tie it in with a statement, hey, I'm demonstrating this value, here's what I'm doing, right? Oh, people start to get it a little bit more. It's work, it's definite work, but it's so amazing. And it's all communication, right? And I love the statement on the right that when we don't have alignment in be, say, do, we lose credibility, trust, engagement, energy, excitement, right? It's not fun. We create mixed messages, confusion, people filling in the blanks, not a great environment to be in. And because we're talking about communication, right? Here's an example of the same model, be, say, do, but just in a different way, right? To try and help people understand how this can all work, right? Be is the entire, ecosystem of everything, right? Do demonstrates it, and say are the words I use to reinforce it. So, just as another example. And I got permission from a company that I've worked for and I work with now to use their values, right? And the way they behave and believe. I love this stuff. Behind this slide is a lot of information of what it means and the actions that are demonstrated that support the company way and the values. I love it. It gives me goosebumps. However, if we don't live this, communicate it, talk about it, what am I creating? A lot of mixed messages, a lot of assumptions, a lot of guesswork, a lot of, oh, they say we should be doing this, but I've never seen a leader do it, right? So it's really important to have that consistency. If you're going to put it on a wall, you got to do something with it. So this stuff is just amazing because it clearly articulates the be, say, and do for this company. So with all of this being said, tying it all together, what can you do now, right? We definitely want to align the do, right? And we want your actions to match the do. But my question to all of you, and again, this is in the handouts that you have, the PDF that Elizabeth attached, is what are you spending your time on, whether it's at home or at work, right? How well are you listening, right? If you want people to listen to you, are you listening to them and demonstrating that? And I unfortunately think about my kids and it's crazy cell phones that are, in our hands constantly. I don't want my kids to have that when they have cell phones. So I had better demonstrate putting the cell phone down. Part of me wants to go get a home phone, a landline, right? So there's no excuse that, well, no one can get a hold of me if I don't have my phone with me. But anywho, in this managing what you do, the exercise or suggestion I have for you is to take a look at your calendar. And it's actually on the next slide. Take a look at your calendar and see where you spent time during the last 30 days, whether it was meetings, outside activities, engagements, one-on-ones. How does that align to the goals and activities that are important to your function or your department or you in your home? Right? So if you look at your top 3 initiatives for the year, right, and the goals you're trying to work towards, did your actions actually support that? Right? Or are you fighting fires? Are you in these ad hoc, hallway conversations constantly and not supporting your team? Are you canceling one-on-ones? right? Because you don't have time for them. Are you showing up late? Are you not following up? Like, take it's like a self-reflection. Look where you're spending your time to see if it actually lines up with your goals and objectives. And that B, right? What you believe in and what you want to do and accomplish, right? And so in the handouts, there's the same matrix is there for you to take a look at. And Elizabeth, if it's possible to reattach that. So it's important, and it would be a cool exercise just for people to do in general. I would love to do it at my house. Hey, kids and husband, let's all take a look at this. Our B might be a little bit different, but we can work on that. But this is so impactful. Just taking 5 to 10 minutes to do this can really help you understand how your actions support, right, the values that you believe in. It's massive. And so with that, I leave you with a couple questions, right? And so these questions are also on the handout. How many of these are true statements for your organization or for your team, right? And if not, are they, maybe you don't do them today well, are they on your 2023 strategic plan to be worked on? Are they in part of your OKRs or your KPIs or your metrics that matter? Are these initiatives that are being focused on? If this isn't focused on as almost like a project with a rollout and follow-up and measurements, it's not going to happen, right? Your communication system isn't just going to happen because someone read a book, right? It happens because it's intentional, it's planned, and people are engaged. So it's a really big deal. So I challenge all of you to take a look at this, understand where you're spending your time, taking that be, say, do model, applying it to the values at work to see if it's defined, and are there behaviors associated to it, and how well is everyone following up. And if it doesn't come through in the chat, we can probably send it as a take home, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I've attached it twice, but I'm seeing people saying they're not seeing it. Oh, James is seeing it.
It's there. All right.
But Stephanie didn't see it. Nope, she's got it now. Okay, it worked.
Perfect. Perfect. So as mentioned, this is work, but it's exciting. It's impactful, right? It's how you get people excited to be a part of your company, to be on the journey and to work hard. And all of this, right, supports a culture, and hopefully it supports a lean culture of continuous improvement and respect for every individual. And so, this is just a 45-minute snippet of a much larger training. So if anyone's interested in hearing more about it, obviously please contact me. If you liked what you heard and just want to talk more, please feel free to reach out. I love this stuff. I love taking the lean culture and the Toyota production system and putting it into work at a foundational level, right? It's not just tools and, visual management and 5S. There's so much more to it that can really transform an organization. So with that being said, what questions or comments does anyone have? Or Elizabeth, anything to add in?
Yeah, you touched on so many things that I'm currently even thinking about, but just the waste. I remember thinking, sometimes when like the too much communication, the whole reply all, like I remember thinking, oh, that's one of those wasteful things. It's hard to focus when you're getting too much information.
Yes,
and I think sometimes organizations do that. It's overkill. And so you don't focus, you don't really hear the main messages like that. That's why that concise part really matters. And the other, I remember hearing someone say, well, we don't get credit, people don't give us credit. And I thought, well, you could give credit, like you're part of the culture. You can actually step forward and start recognizing what people are doing. But I think we sometimes feel that we are a pawn or a victim of culture, capital C, and we're all part of it. Obviously, leadership has a huge role in all the things that you're pulling together, but we're all part of it. And so recognizing our role, I think, as you say, is critical.
And I know I've again reflecting back and like I've been the complainer and what about us and that's so unfair. Yep, life's not fair sometimes. But take ownership, make the best of it, right? Do what you can in your own realm and enjoy that and be excited about what you've accomplished and what you are implementing that other people might glean from and say, gosh, look what they created over there. I can do the same thing. It's,
Mhm.
more of a grassroots way, but it still can be very impactful and drive a lot of engagement.
It can. AJ's asking, what level of communication on average is typically seen in North American industries? Okay, I'm taking in all your facial gestures right now,
Yeah.
Jen. I'm trying to figure out what exactly you're saying to us.
I know, because the good thing about when we're wearing masks for COVID is that my face sends a lot of messages. In full transparency, my experiences, I started with obviously with Toyota, where I still emulate some of the communication processes they had today, and I value it. I went to another company, transportation, trucking, and it was not great. But they transformed it into more of a lean culture, servant leadership, and the communication was phenomenal. But ever since then, every company I've hit is 50-50. I think there's a lack of I don't want to say care, but it's that respect for every individual, and assumptions, a lot of assumptions that people already know. And so I'd say the most companies I've worked with in the last probably 5 to 6 years, there's a lot of improvement that's needed, but it's time and energy, and sometimes people just don't want to invest there.
It's time and energy, but I think like this is a process improvement world. It's a process. And so to set up those drum beats, to know that on the first of the month, you send out this information. Weekly, you do X. Like, what are those processes, and make them, just simple to follow. We know that that's how we do it. We know it's 3 bullets. You know what I mean? Like, make it manageable, but make it a habit.
Yes, I have built it in as a standard. Joanna, any tips for faces that move too much? Even when I try not to move, I'm still sending messages.
Jen, you mentioned cultures that don't turn on the video and that you do anyway. And I do anyway as well. And I think Dorsey Sherman mentioned this too. I remember I like to check my face once in a while to see what's the message being sent. Am I paying attention? I have zero poker face. I consequently don't play poker, but the really important to watch that message that you're sending, because just that. So I do think that awareness. So Johanna, that I hope that's helpful. I find keeping the video on both, it's good for communication in general, and to encourage others to do it, even if you're the only one on camera. I'll stay on. It's like that people should be on camera.
Yes. Yeah, I think that you're right. We get to stare at ourselves in a mirror, and
terrible.
I know.
It's work. We have to do it. It's work.
It's a never-ending journey.
Thank you so much. And then there's James, suggestions on how to deal with aggressive or frustrated modes of communication.
I'm going to go back to, I think I mentioned it in the communication defects, is identifying it, calling it out. People might not realize how they're coming across, or that the memo or the information was a little harsh, a little rude. Talk about it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do it publicly, but
no. I think you're right. Like, even asking, I'm just looking at those words, like, you sound frustrated.
Yep.
Like you said, Jen, call it out, make that now explicit. Like, I'm hearing frustration. Is that what you're feeling? Because that's the thing that it's sort of the unspoken is all the feelings that happen in the workplace, which is, as if they weren't there. And if we don't discuss it, then they just sublimate and boil. So I think that's a great advice.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's definitely a level of maturity, demonstrating leadership when you can have those uncomfortable conversations. And how do you deliver it in a welcoming way that you're just trying to improve or understand? It's not like you're coming back and saying, this memo was really rude, or I'm sensing this, right? It's meeting them in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. So using inquiry and using it just to get someplace good.
Yep. Positive intent.
Positive intent. Well, Jennifer, what a joy once again to get you at the cafe, and what a fabulous piece you put together. I so appreciate you sharing this with us. This was great. And the handout, I think a number of you either have some attachments blocked or for some reasons weren't able to get the handout. So I will be on, everyone who signed up for this gets, you're automatically on the email list, just so you know. And then I will send out a copy to this recording in case you want to share it with other people. Usually we get that out by Monday, and then I will try to include, this is my technical ability coming into play, to get that handout on there, which was also really generous of you to share, Jen. A pleasure.
Yes, so excited to be back.
And
So
thanks for
thank you
everyone.
having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for participating. You guys have been great. Thank you, and we'll see you at the cafe next month.
Yes, fantastic speakers coming up.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Bye guys.